I thought I'd bring you one of my favourite profiles, one of the most popular profiles, and a profile that also gets an update thanks to Supreme Darkness. So you're going to get a little bit of an extra preview as to what card you're going to want to pick up to help you build and improve Invoked Shaddoll. That's right, there is an update to Invoked Shaddoll, and the card you're going to want to look to get hold of will be the TCG import of the Magistus Chorozo. Now this is a new Super Poly target for the deck that does give you some battle phase protection, which is really kind of cool, and I'll talk about it a little bit later on, but the idea is that this requires a Fusion, Synchro, XYZ or Link monster plus a Spellcaster. So going second, you'll be able to do that with ease. Even going first, you'll be able to do it with ease, and it gives you the ability that during the battle phase you can negate an attack and then return the monster that declared the attack back to the hand, which is really kind of cool, and it's a nice 2800 defender as well. I'm also going to take you through the exact build for the Invoked Shaddoll strategy, how it currently looks like, and on top of that I'll also show you a side deck that you're going to want to be putting together if you want to take this to a local environment or higher. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe if you haven't done so already to continue to join us on our journey all the way up to 100,000 subscribers. So with all of that out of the way, I'm going to dive headfirst into the profile and show you what we've got, explaining why we've got it. So you're going to be starting off with pretty much standard for the Invoked engine of triple Alistar the Invoker, followed up by triple Magical Meltdown, which basically is just another version or another way to get to your Alistar. 2 Invocation, still absolutely love this artwork, and 1 Terraforming to help you get to your Magical Meltdown. So your Invoked engine, as it always is very tight and compact. You can sub this out if you don't want to play the Invoked engine at all. It does free up 5 spaces in your extra deck, and then what you'd be doing is you'd be trying to find a different engine that can help the Shaddoll strategy out. One engine that I have found that really does help it in the past has been the Fossil engine, and the reason that I like that is it gives it a very nice aggressive output, and you basically turn your Shaddoll deck into an OTK deck, which is absolutely insane. Speaking of the Shaddoll, so for the Shaddoll monsters, again, pretty standard on this lineup here. We've got 2 Squamata, 1 Hog, Dragon, Beast, Aerial, Genius, and of course the Wendy. Now the best thing about all of these, apart from of course the Wendy, the Genius, and of course the Aerial, is that these are spellcasters. So technically with Super Poly, you can fuse with a face down monster of your own. You can't fuse with one of your opponent's face down monsters. But what I do like about that is I can normal summon Alistar, use Alistar's effect to search, and if they attempt to either Veiler it, Imperm it, or negate it via a targeted effect, I can still train Super Poly using my Alistar. Now of course I can work my way into one of the Alistar invoked fusion monsters, but I might as well go into the brand new Chorozo, and on top of that I can then still resolve the Alistar, and as long as I can get a light monster in rotation one way or another, that's going to give me the ability to work my way into either Macabre, or of course I can work my way into a Purga Trio. I could even use the Chorozo just to go straight for a Kaliga, which really does slow the game down and gives you a lot of control, especially when you combo that off with a Winda as well. On top of that, if you do hard open up your Shaddoll monsters, you can set a Squamata, let it flip if you need to, or of course you just Super Poly with the face down Shaddoll monster, and then you'll be able to tree the effects off, as well as then being able to contact fuse, or technically fuse, with your opponent's board, whether it be a Link, Fusion, Synchro, or XYZ, into the brand new Chorozo, which just gives you a little bit more added extra disruption. Then for the rest of the Shaddoll cards, of course, we do play triple Shaddoll Fusion, followed up by 1 L Shaddoll Fusion, a Incarnation, and of course a Schism. So the whole idea behind all of this is what you could also do is add in the Nadir package, and that's another engine you could take out for the Invoked engine if you wanted to, and then of course you can play any normal summon styled engine that you possibly want to. The idea is that the Invoked engine is the flexible capacity of this if you wanted. You can also just mix it with just full-on power play. Like, massive shout out to Carl. Back in the day, he went to Nationals, and he went to Nationals with an Invoked Shaddoll power play deck, and what it was playing power play spell cards in the form of stuff like Fusion Destiny, Nadir Servant, Alistar Engine, Shaddoll Engine, you name it, and it did absolutely insanely well. It just missed out on the top 64. It ended up getting it snuck into the top 124, I believe it is, which is, I think it's 124 or 132, but he basically ended up walking away with the map, which was an insane achievement with the deck as well. Then for the hand trap S cards, I'm still playing the 1 Eldritch the Golden Lord. Like, you don't have to play this. I just still like its implications with this deck. So you send it from the deck to the grave with Shaddoll Fusion, or of course if you discard it or use it in the hand as fusion material in any way whatsoever, you're still going to be able to bring it back, and it becomes an insanely powerful boss monster. On top of that as well, if you do hard open it, it does tend itself out to be a bit of a hand trap, because you get to send this card and 1 spell or trap from your hand to the graveyard to target a card on the field and then send it to the graveyard. So there's another way of being able to disrupt your opponent, and I really do like it. But you don't have to play it, entirely up to you. For the other hand traps, you have loads of space in this deck to play lots of hand traps, which is what works out really nicely. If you wanted to add the Nadir package into what the current structure is right here, the Nadir package, you're probably going to be looking at 4 cards. So 3 Nadir Servant plus 1 Dogmatica Maximus, and that means you can sacrifice 4 of the hand traps I'm about to show you now. So you'd definitely be playing triple Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and then I play a range of 2 ofs just to kind of get me through different scenarios. So we've got Ghost Ogre, Ghost Bell, and Effect Veiler. Now, obviously, the more ideal one right now for this format, in my opinion, is Ghost Bell, because it can be quite damaging against Ryzeal, and it can definitely be damaging against Malice in the right scenario and the right type of setup, and that's where you might want to sacrifice something like the Effect Veiler. The flip side of the Effect Veiler is it does become that light monster that you might want in your graveyard in order to utilize for your Macabre. Then for the other hand traps, of course, we are playing triple Infinite Impermanence, and we are playing 2 double Tactic Talents. So you can take these out if you want to as well. These aren't absolute staples. You can main deck something like a Book of Eclipse if you wanted to, which is a card that I'm using in my side deck right now. It really is a flex spot for you to play around with. And of course, the last card that is insanely powerful at breaking boards, can help you extend your board and can also help you push for OTKs, is of course Super Polymerization. Now, the only downside of this particular deck is when you also look in the Nadir package as well, is your extra deck is super tight, because you want to be playing like 5 Shaddoll fusion monsters, 5 Invoked fusion monsters, and then you have 5 slots to kind of play around with. Straight away, 3 of those 5 slots become generic Super Poly targets, so you have the most optimum option to break your opponent's board no matter what matchup you're in. And then the final 2 cards are really going to be there for link kind of plays in order to get you different attributes to the graveyard, or play something like an SP Little Knight to give you the most way of interacting with your opponent. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now I'm going to show you the extra deck, as I've pretty much basically already mentioned miniature parts of it. And then I'll show you the side deck as well, so you have an idea of what cards you'll be looking for and what type of scenarios you might be bringing them in for as well. So we move on to the extra deck. For the Shaddoll monsters, we're playing double Construct, double Winder, and a single App Cologne. Now, if you really wanted to fine-tune this down a little bit, you could cut out 1 Winder and Construct, but to be completely honest with you, because we're playing such a high level of Shaddoll monsters, you're actually able to utilize these a lot more consistently, and a lot of people, when they see Shadolls, they're so used to only seeing 1. So when you're able to then spring a second Winder on them when they think they've got rid of the first one and that's what they need to worry about, that can be massively damaging. And then even summoning out the App Cologne can also be damaging to your opponent as well, because what a lot of people forget is this becomes a negate, and if you use the El Shaddoll Genius as well, you get double negates, which gives you more interaction. For the Invoked monsters, of course, we are playing double Macabre, 1 Kaliga, 1 Agedes, and 1 Purgatrio. Now, obviously, the Purgatrio is probably the more difficult one in this build to particularly resolve, and that's when you're going to be relying on your opponent to play Ash Blossom, and of course, you playing Ash Blossom itself. But then you also do need to remember that in a Ryzeal matchup, they're going to be filling the graveyard with fire monsters, and sometimes being able to banish their monsters or banish their materials can be massively helpful for you, and that's where most of the attributes can be very, very good in that particular matchup. Macabre is the standard one, that's your negate. The Kaliga is, of course, your stun card that goes alongside the Winder. You've got the Agedes as your aggressor with a bit of a pop. And then, of course, you've got the Purgatrio, which is your OTK enabler. Moving on to the generic cards as well, we'll start with the Super Poly targets of being 1 Garura Wings of Resonance Life, 1 Predaplant Jackus Depelia. The reason I didn't go for Mud Dragon in this one is I felt that we pretty much cover most boards right now with your own Shaddoll monsters and your Invoked monsters to hit your opponent's lights and fires, and even fusion monsters as well. The benefit of Jackus Depelia is it gives you that ability during your turn, and even during your opponent's turn, that you can turn one of your fusion monsters and upgrade it into a Jackus Depelia, which gives you another form of negation. So for example, if you already use the Macabre and you've got a Super Poly set, you can then go, cool, Super Poly using my own Macabre and then my opponent's Dark Monster, and I've set up another negate in that place as well. So it's a kind of cool option as well that can be utilized with a Shaddoll monster as long as you're using an opponent's Dark Monster. And of course, if you are going to be going up against Yubel or anything that utilizes the Fiendsmiths, you can get rid of their Desiree with a Super Poly, and then if they have left a Dark Monster on the board, or you put a Dark Monster on the board, it can be massively hurtful for them. Then before we go on to the brand new TCG import, we play the 1 Artemis and the 1 SP Little Knight. Now the Artemis is in here for you to turn your Alistar into a light monster, and that's your most easiest and direct way to get a light monster into rotation. The idea is that I want to be able to do something like that rather than having to go through a Salamangreat Almirage into a Secure Gardener, just because the spaces in the extra are relatively tight. It also gives you the ability, if you get another monster to the board, that you can go Alistar into Artemis and then use Artemis plus that additional monster to get you into an SP Little Knight, or of course use any fusion monster that can help you get into an SP Little Knight to set you up with that banish. You can take out the SP Little Knight. That's when you might want to start considering stuff like the Alistar Link monster, but I feel you change the build of the deck a little bit more if you go down that route, because I would then highly expect or highly advise you to look into Book of the Law and adding that into the deck as well, which gives it a different dynamic. The final card is, of course, the brand new card that we get in Supreme Darkness. Now, this is, of course, a paper proxy. This will come out as a super rare in Supreme Darkness, so definitely be on the lookout for this. And this is the Magistus Chorozo. So this one, like I said at the start, requires a Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link monster, plus a Spellcaster. It must first be either Fusion summoned or Special summoned from your extra deck by sending the correct Fusion material monster cards you control to the graveyard, by sending them to the graveyard themselves. So obviously you can either hard summon this out yourself, or what you're going to want to do in more times than not in this particular build is going to be using it as a super poly target. Then the benefit of the back of one of this one is as well is that once per turn, when a monster declares an attack, so yours or your opponent's, obviously ideally yours, you get your opponent, ideally you get to target it, negate it, and then, negate the attack, and then if you do, this card gains attack equal to that monster's attack until the end of the turn, and then you get to return that monster to the hand. So it's non-target, return it back to the hand, which is really, really kind of cool, but you do target it in the first place, so not the end of the world. The other is you get to negate an attack, you get to increase the attack of the Chorozo, or you're going to be keeping it in defense as a 2800 defender, and then of course you get to negate the attack and bounce it back to the hand. So you get to clear off one of your opponent's monsters. This is great, especially if you save this and you super poly during the battle phase. They can't really get around it. They're like, right, okay, well, I know if I attack, the attack's going to get negated, and then this is going to bounce that monster back to the hand, and you'll obviously still have more cards to play with. And if you super poly it during the battle phase, you're either using your opponent's Spellcaster and one of their other XYZ Link Fusion Synchro monsters, or you're going to be using one of their Link Synchro XYZs or Fusion monsters, plus one of your Spellcasters, which is relatively quite easy to do as well. And if you're backing this up with a Winder, and they're trying to go to the battle phase to get rid of the Winder, that's where this comes in clutch, because you bring this out, keep your Winder on the board, that's your one special summon, but then as soon as they try to attack the Winder, you go, okay, cool, effect, negate the attack, bounce that monster that just tried to kill the Winder, and then that's it, they're locked out and they can't do anything. So I think it's a great card on this one. The fact it's 2800 defender as well means you can leave it in defense, and then as soon as you get rid of your Winder going back to your turn, you'll then be able to push for an OTK, and keep in mind, as it is a fusion monster, Alice can also buff it by a K as well. So that's it for the entire main deck and of course the extra deck. Now to show you a basic side deck so you have an idea of what you might want to be putting in depending on where you're trying to take this. So just as a bit of a quick advanced one on this one, for the spells we are playing double, triple tactic talent, triple tactics thrust, go get there eventually. And the targets are for the back of the thrust, not to mention your Shaddoll fusion in the main deck, terraforming to lead you into the Invoked engine as well. We're going to go with a Harpy's Feather Duster for back row, and then you've got your stun trap cards for going first, being D-Barrier, Artifact Sanctum, and Destructive Daruma Cannon. If you don't want to play Destructive Daruma Cannon, you can of course play DDG. You could even play this one as well as, so you've got even more options. But what I liked about this one is the Sanctum is a great option to deal with Malice. D-Barrier deals with Ryziel. Daruma Cannon can deal with technically Ryziel, but also Malice, and then any other rogue Link strategy deck as well. And then you're going to be backing this up with loads of other cards on top of it. So the other cards that I'm testing out right now is Triple Deck Lockdown and Triple Book of Eclipse. So just trying to figure out which route I'd want to go with this one. If you don't want to play Deck Lockdown, you can play Drone Lockbird. The difference of Deck Lockdown is it's just a stronger, more longer turn orientated one. And the other is you do all your searching, you then add Deck Lockdown, you're backing it up with a Winder, possible Super Poly, and it's like your opponent will really, really struggle to break that board. The only monster that we're playing is, of course, Triple Artifact Lancer. Now, I tried to keep in mind that the type of player that would be playing this particular type of deck is not going to be splashing free Fluoruses in their deck. If you have access to Fluorus, you can find a way to put it in if you wanted to. Honestly, I am quite happy with this particular lineup. Like, Lancia is such a great card that's going to be able to shut down the Malice matchup if you do see it. And you've got technically 4 direct ways to get to it, and then 5 and 6 when you consider the fact you can also get to it through the Triple Tactics talents as well, Triple Tactics Thrust as well. So you've got more ways of getting to this. You could shift this up depending on what your local environment is. If it is going to be Ryziel's running rampant, then of course you might want to start looking at adding spellbounds to this. You might want to max up the D barriers, but then you kind of got to be very cautious on that, and you'd be like, okay, well, I know I'm only going to be facing Ryziel, or I'm only going to be facing Malice, and you would adapt the engine accordingly to what you would face and what you'd need. So that's pretty much it for the entire profile. I hope this has given you a bit of an update. Thank you so much for watching. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, whether you jumped in at day 1, 11 years ago, whether you jumped in right now after seeing this video, or even before seeing this video and you just saw, wow, Invoked Shaddoll, new card, let's see what we've got cooking, and then go from there. So thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for following along with us. Hopefully you continue to do so all the way until the channel pretty much reaches its end goal, I guess. And that one isn't in sight anytime soon. We're going to keep it going. As long as you guys keep enjoying it and keep getting entertained, I'll be more than happy to keep bringing you content. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.